You're welcome to the Policy Council. My name is Okwemi Agbaje. This week we take our usual periodic look, at the state of the nation. Of course, we look first at the world. Developments in the Arab world, Islamic world, which some have described as Islamic rage or Muslim rage, the approaching US elections and the state of play between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. And then we come home. Interesting developments, sovereign wealth fund, CBN 5,000 naira note, a debtors list splashed on the pages of newspapers, a resurgent capital market, many more things. We'll take a look at these and other matters along with my core panel. Enjoy the program. This is still the Policy Council, and we're looking at the nation, X-ray of major developments and the effects on policy and the economy in Nigeria. My core panel is here, two of them. Victor Ogenwoyi, Managing Director, Partnership Investment, and Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Kavi Asset Management. You're welcome, gentlemen.
My pleasure.
State of Nigeria, but first state of the world.
Yes.
The part two of the Arab Spring, the developments in Egypt, in
Syria,
in Libya. Some have called it the Muslim rage.
Yes.
Well, what are your thoughts on this?
I think particularly in Egypt, I think it's been very interesting. The fact that we've seen a president elected by the people. And then, of course, as it happens in every person who wants to rule the majority, you can see that despite the fact that he was produced by the Muslim Brotherhood, he has shifted to the center. He doesn't want to be seen as being dogmatic.
Has he shifted to the center?
I think so. I think he's going to, don't forget that you are coming from the core. You can see the steps he's taking. Look at his stand on when he went to Iran on Syria, for instance. Though Syria is a little bit more complicated because of the geopolitical issues involved in that. But definitely, I believe that the example in Egypt is a good one.
Johnson, your thoughts?
Well, I think I actually believe that the transition from an autocratic governments in the Middle East, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, and the rest will not be very smooth. Particularly when an order is suddenly disrupted. You'll find out that, look, there is no longer that channel of communication.
Stability.
There's no stability. So it takes a long time for that stability to be restored. And which is actually what we are seeing happen in Egypt and even in Libya. I mean, recently, the guy who arrested Muammar Gaddafi died because he was kidnapped and held in captivity for 50 days, and then tortured and released with bullet wound. Because there are still some reactionary elements left in that system. You saw what happened in Benghazi, where the American ambassador was recently killed. Even in South Africa, when they moved from an autocratic apartheid system to a civilian, a
civil
rule, where there was a lot of crime, a lot of violent crime in South Africa. I also think, to some extent, that's what's happening in the northern part of the country, where the feudal system was disrupted under the last political dispensation, under the last, where some form of meritocracy and people were now brought into government, into leadership position, not because of their blue blood lineage, but more of their intellectual capacity, and therefore some level of disruption around that. So I think that's what we're seeing in the Middle East.
President Obama would have been shocked if he reached out to the Arab Islamic world in Cairo. He thought that he had encouraged democracy. In fact, Hillary Clinton, in her first comments at the press conference after the killing of the Libyan ambassador, expressed almost bewilderment. Here, she said, Benghazi, where we helped liberate.
Okay, but
is U.S. losing influence?
I don't think so. I think for now, again, these are the early beginnings. Don't forget that if you also compare Libya and Egypt, they are so different in the sense that in Egypt, it was a self-help effort that actually liberated them. Or like in Libya, where there's that glee that we helped you. Don't forget that within Libya, that is not something that because they've already seen America as part of the problem, all of a sudden you are now at the door saving us. They're still going to take some time before they get used to the reconciliation.
Let's talk quickly about the U.S. elections. Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan versus Obama and Biden again. How do you see it shaping out so far?
Well, if you look at the latest opinion polls, it still shows that Obama is leading the opinion polls. You see, Obama had actually scored some reasonable good points, particularly in foreign policy on today, recent incident in Benghazi. I mean, the killing of Osama bin Laden was a good political point for Obama. And again, some of the areas they are attacking him on the economic front, the people are tending to forget that, look, where America was, I mean, we're beginning to see some improvement in level of employment in America, and we're seeing better improvement in terms of economic indices compared to what Obama inherited. And it couldn't have been an easy job.
Might the events of North Africa and might they influence the elections a bit?
Which I think, which is why Obama's speech at the UN General Assembly was actually prepared to address that.
Yeah.
You know, Obama came out smoking and threatening that, look, one, in the case of Iran, that America will do whatever it should to make sure Iran does not acquire nuclear weapon. He also went ahead to say, look, the people who are actually attacking Americans in the Middle East, in Egypt, in Libya, are actually reactionary forces, and that the world should unite against them because we should not allow them to have superior.
Okay, on that pro-Obama note, let's take a short break. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. We're still on the Policy Council. Let's come home and focus on the economy. The CBN 5,000 naira notes and coining of some lower denominations has been suspended. But we didn't have an opportunity to look at that. Let me start from Victor.
Personally, I think that if we wanted to redominate the currency, I think it is within the right of CBN and those who govern it to do whatever it has to do. I have a problem with the 5,000 notes because I think that there's absolutely no need. The rest, they can do I support the coinage because it makes them last longer. Because one of the reasons we spend so much money doing those 20 and 50 naira notes and the polymer one was because they will stay. But we now notice that they don't stay. They're already pushing away. And ironically, somebody signed some contract somewhere where we are paying royalty for the security features supposedly in these currencies. I don't think that makes sense for us to be paying money, whatever, no matter how small, or printing our own money. We pay to buy, we buy the money that we print. It doesn't make sense. I think that is enough reason to actually do the reprinting. And I'm also worried that we are losing our institutions one by one. The CBN used to be one of those very isolated and respected institutions, and when it speaks, people listen. But the CBN is gradually becoming another political player.
Who do you blame for that?
I don't know. There's a number of ways to look at it. I mean, my friends have joked that we have a reformer in Sanusi with a brass band in tow. At least everything they have to make noise about. If you wanted it to be debated, it would have been before you got approval. That's where, again, I believe that the president should have just, forget, the issue that is been approved and apologize that we are sorry. Maybe we'll suspend the 5,000 and do the others. Because a currency also has to be restructured from time to time because of forgery. If you look at the 5,000
Nigeria did one between 2005 and 2009.
Which is a shame. But the trouble is that we look at the merits of it. One, if you do the 5,000 naira notes, you are enhancing corruption, because we know that
and money laundering.
Exactly, and money laundering. So those are definitely counter-objective to what we said we are going to do. You are also saying that we want to go cashless and then you are making it easy for people to call. I don't think that makes sense. I think if you look at those alone, the 5,000 naira should be completely suspended. They can go ahead with restructuring the other notes because we need them to be able to be more effective in transacting our business.
Johnson.
Well, I slightly differ from with him on the aspect of the coinage of the lower denominations.
In fact, for some people, that's the bigger problem.
Yes, on the 5,000 naira note, I mean, I completely agree with him. There was no need for that. One is that we are moving from a cash-based economy to a cashless economy. Yeah. And the concept of a cashless economy is that you want transactions to be executed using electronic payment systems. So in that case, the argument that it will reduce the cost of printing of notes is defeated because transactions will no longer require a lot of cash activities. We have to look at what influenced the higher denominations of 500 naira, 1,000 naira in the past. It was because we said the economy was growing. Transactions because transactions were cash-based, we required higher volume of currency to execute. And therefore, we said then let's introduce, the then Syrian government introduced 500 naira and 1,000 naira notes subsequently, on the basis that this will make execution of transactions, payment system to be more efficient because you had higher denominations. But right now, we're actually driving the process of cash light or cashless.
It was almost like an admission of failure of
yes, it was a complete reversal of the cashless policy. So that's the reason why, if you want to drive cashless policy, which is actually right, my argument against it was, well, it was more of sanctions with no incentives. That it should have been driven by more of incentive than sanctions. Then you cannot at the same time be introducing high denomination notes that makes it more convenient for people to carry out transactions using cash. That's on that. On the coinage, the area where I differ with Victor is, if you look at the culture, because any currency has to enjoy acceptability. That's one of the cardinal points of any currency. It must be acceptable by the users, by the people. Nigerians have proven consistently over time that they don't accept coins. So if you coin the lower denominations of 5 naira, 10 naira, and 20 naira, the implication is that if Nigerians fail to accept it, because there's also the issue of another cardinal attribute of any good currency, portability. Coins are not portable. So if you coin the lower denominations,
dangling in your pocket,
yes, you cannot hold 2,000 naira coins. In 20 naira coins.
Although I can argue, I wonder whether that cultural argument is not a surface argument, because when we go to UK, we use the coins.
It is
even across Africa, they use coins.
But look at it.
We used to use them.
Yes, we all here. Most of us go to UK. Even in UK, it's not convenient for a Nigerian to carry coins in UK. You find out when you go back to your hotel rooms, you stack them somewhere.
I agree, I do that a lot.
So because I've looked at my own experience, when I go there, every coin they give me, I don't go back to the shopping mall with it. I just keep stacking them, hoping that before I go back, I'll just go take them to that and make sure I spend them, because it's not convenient. And that's the reality. So if the Nigerians reject those coins, if you coin them, the implication would have been that the lowest priced items would be priced to the lowest coin that's accepted would have been 15 naira.
Was it a good thing that the president suspended?
I think it was a very good thing, because if you look at it, the generation of Nigerians said they didn't want it. The arguments against it far outweigh the arguments for it. So it would have been
an imposition.
An imposition. It would have been amounted to insensitivity to impose a currency structure that the population said they would not want and was of little value.
Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
Who knows Abi better thing? Abi who know like better thing? All these fine things where they see so. Now money government they take do now. Abi, it's like, excuse me, I dey pay my tax. I dey do wetin? I dey pay my tax. Say you don't pay your own tax. If you pay your tax, I pay oh.
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
We're back with Johnson Chukwu and Victor Ogenwoye. Still on Central Bank. They published a controversial list of debtors, AMCON debtors. It was almost like the list of national honors in Nigeria. What are your thoughts on that, Johnson?
Well, in the first place, we also have to admit that both the Central Bank and AMCON have said that the list as it stands, as was published, is no longer current. That some of the names on that list should have been on the list based on their current status with AMCON. But having said that, my position is this. In every other country in the world, recalcitrant debtors are blacklisted. If you go to America and you have a bad credit card history, you will never borrow. So I don't see anything wrong with blacklisting recalcitrant debtors who have proven over time not to honor their obligations. But that is also a moving target. If you are blacklisted and you remedy your debt position, you will be allowed to borrow. So the question would be whether it should have been published in national newspapers.
I have a fundamental problem with that.
So
First of all, let me present my confusion about this. First, yes, we may be happy to know those who are owing our financial system. And sometimes we may laugh about it and make fun of them. But more seriously, they entered into private and confidential financial transactions with their banks.
Exactly.
They even resolved, because going to AMCON was a sign that
It's a
resolution of the debt. AMCON discussed with them and agreed to take over their debts. Why do we then suddenly, the same CBN and AMCON, which negotiated with them, agreed with them, passed their debts to AMCON, suddenly wakes up one morning and publishes their names?
Which is why I said in the first place that the question shouldn't have been published.
Yeah.
And I don't think it should have been published in the first place.
You know what we were saying? Why I agree with him that, blacklisting creditors is not, debtors is not a new thing. It's the way it is done. Again, everything must be publicized. There was no reason for, just like you said, AMCON was supposed to be a resolution vehicle, which is what they are still going through. Why is it at this time that you need to start this? But that notwithstanding,
if you are a conspiracy theorist,
yes, that notwithstanding, if you say, when you do things here, you say, it is, we are in extraordinary circumstances, so we do extraordinary things. If you are looking at standards, the Bank of England has done
published the names of debtors.
The Federal Reserve Bank do this. So this is the kind of things where, if those are the standards we are talking about, look at those standards and say, would they have done this? So I think we should be very careful. There is no need to worry about the fact that, most of even those debts are, we know our banks.
Let me pursue my conspiracy theory. If you are a conspiracy theorist, you would imagine that it had something to do perhaps with an attempt to discredit some of those people who are trying to buy power assets.
Well, I wouldn't know whether that's the case, but this is not the first time that is being done. And obviously because Nigerians did not react negatively to it. A lot of people celebrated that their enemies or their friends or those that they counted as already comfortable, yes, were being shamed.
Yeah.
It was a case of naming and shaming. It was done before. And even people who were owing as little as 100 million, at the point when the capital market crashed, the real estate market crashed, prices of oil products crashed, and people went into default. Some of them not because
they wanted
to default. And then their names were splashed on the pages of newspapers. This is not the first time it's being done. So I don't know what the objective is. The name and shame approach of central bank when it comes to publishing of names of debtors. Like you rightly said, these are private treaties. I think they should, like what AMCON came out to say, that this list, the publication of that list was unauthorized. I don't know what is the motivation to continue to publish names of people who are. Unfortunately, like AMCON did say, some of those loans have been restructured and we are performing.
Yeah.
So if you want,
indeed, some of them were loans that were voluntarily transferred to AMCON for single obligor reasons, rather than any issue of loan
debt. Yes, I think we're getting, again, decentralization of everything is what it is. I believe that the central bank should try to, keep his own matters very private. It's a revered institution, and the fear I have is that I don't want us to be challenging every of our institutions just because they make some mistakes.
Okay, let's take a final time out. We'll be right back.
Government wants our city to become a mega modern city, and so government is providing modern markets for us to carry out our business. Now, this requires money, so we need to pay our taxes to help government to help us. I pay my taxes. I hope you've paid yours. I pay. Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back to my final segment with my core panel, Victor Ogenwonyi, Johnson Chukwu. Let's take 3 key issues. Capital market recovery. It seems there's some recovery going on.
Yes, there's good news because we're beginning to see a very solid recovery. Almost 25% in up till the last few days. That tells you that everything that has been done in the last 2 years is beginning to come together. The regulatory reforms, the systems have been put in place to check some of the things that were going wrong. The resolution has been put in place. I think all of them is coming together.
And I must say, maybe perhaps greater confidence in governance.
Oh, definitely. There's greater confidence. The fact that the electricity situation is getting better is inspiring of confidence. And a number of all the other issues that were around the market at the time. The debt overhang is still there, but it's not as toothless as it was before. And of course, with the rising market, that means most of those debt problems will also be wiped away eventually.
Johnson, power privatization. Some remarkable steps in recent times. What are your thoughts?
I think we have achieved a reasonable milestone towards the privatization of the power sector. I mean, at last count, 5 of the generation companies have been investors have been shortlisted for the 5 of the generation companies. I mean, investors have actually won the concession or the right of purchase of the 5 of the generation companies. And the next one, we are looking at the distribution companies. So we're beginning to achieve some level of traction. And I think if we remain on course, by the end of October, both the generation companies and the distribution company would have been sold. So what we'll now be doing is that monitoring that to make sure that they abide by the covenants, the agreements, the minimum performance standards for the...
Some Nigerians are happy that some of the winning consortia include retired heads of states, generals, normal...
Capital doesn't have any label. What does it matter? If they do the work well, we are not interested in who owns it. Then they just give us electricity at a reasonable price. I don't think we should worry. We should need to get out of that. We need to get out of that.
I totally agree. Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Well, I think the Sovereign Wealth Fund is one of the best things that have happened to us. You know, I've been a strong advocate of it. I believe that the fight the states are putting up has very strong principled way. But however, I'm urging that they should come together to find a way to properly fund the Sovereign Wealth Fund. It has a very big potential. One of the things it can do, for instance, there is no point in even trying to, what we can use is to use it to attract business. Let us say, for instance, you go to Microsoft and say, look, put a factory in Nigeria that employs 5,000 people. We will give you a bond of $7 billion, pay us back in 15 years. In 15 years, we take it from there and invest in Nike. You know, we can start doing that. We can do 2 or 3 of those. You create employment immediately. You will find that the money is in use and nobody's going to steal it because it will be in somebody going to give it to an international company. If we can use that to attract, we need to employ our people, which is the biggest problem we have now. How can we use that
to spur employment? Johnson, your thoughts? Sovereign Wealth Fund, the litigations, the governor's position?
Yeah, I think if you like, Victor said, some of the position of the governors is quite altruistic, particularly when it comes to the issue of incorporation of an SPV to manage the NIPP and the railway investment in the railway sector.
The bomb power.
Yeah, the bomb power.
Railway investments.
Yeah, the only area I disagree with the governors is that they are also asking that within the next 14 days, the 8 billion or so that had been stored up or built up in the SS credit account should be distributed to them. Because when that is done, like we all know, not all the governors have the same capacity to deploy those funds effectively for infrastructure development. If only they will allow, if they see that amount should be zeroized, but let it go to the Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Yes.
So that it will be used. The Sovereign Wealth Fund has 3 elements. Yeah. You have the infrastructure fund, you have the stabilization fund, and the future generation fund. The stabilization fund is there that can be distributed
in future.
Yeah, whenever the oil price is low.
When it really merits it.
Yes. So, but the idea of distributing the SS crude account is the only area I thought their position.
Yes. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back. It's been an incisive discussion on the state of the nation with my core panel. Developments in the Middle East are probably part of the normal process of building a new democratic culture. These are people who have been held down under dictatorship for decades. So the road will be rocky. But the international community, led by the United States and the United Nations, must stay in control. They must preserve democratic liberties. They must preserve the freedom for minorities, the freedom of women, probably insist on secular constitutions to the extent possible. Domestically, we've had positive developments. Power privatization will bring economic progress if we allow it to be properly concluded. The Sovereign Wealth Fund is a good initiative. It will preserve sovereign long-term savings for infrastructure, for economic stabilization, and for our future generations. Our governors must allow that fund to survive, while insisting on the observance of true federal systems. The central bank has been controversial again. We restate our view that calm and policy rigor needs to return to that institution. That's been the program for today. See you next week.